Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. We are moving conferences now. We're moving to the North Coast Athletic Conference, the NCAC, and we're starting at Hiram with head coach Jack Mrozinski. And I've been practicing that name just for coach because he's got a name like me. You'll see it when it's written. But we're going to talk to Coach about his time at Buffalo State. As a player, we're going to talk to Coach about his time as a coach at Buffalo State there right after he graduated, and then why in 2020 it was time to go to Hiram. We're going to talk to him about the conference itself and the strengths and weaknesses of the conference, and why he feels that the NCAC is up there with the other conferences that we've had on and the other conferences around the country. Again, if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all the other places that you can get podcasts, make sure you hit the little bell. And don't forget to follow us on all the social medias. That's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The only difference between the three is the Instagram page, and that is dingo_talk. Without further ado, though, this is the head football coach of Hiram, Jack Mrozinski.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is Hiram head football coach Jack Mrozinski of the North Coast Athletic Conference. Coach, thank you for taking the time to join us.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Coach, we're going to do this like we do every week. I'm going to take you all the way back to 2002, and we're going to work our way to the front. So you graduate with a communications degree from Buffalo State.
Yep.
How do you find your way to Buffalo State, and why was that where you decided to go?
Yeah, a very interesting, process, I guess you could say. I figured it out kind of late, but I was in my senior year, and I took a trip out there, and I kind of at the time wanted to be a communications major, or not a computer science major. So I kind of went through that whole deal, and as you can imagine, at that time of 2002, the computer boom was just starting, and only so many places had that program, and Buffalo State had something like that. But I was also looking at some schools for track, and whenever I visited those schools, it just wasn't the right fit for me. I kind of, didn't feel at home, and I knew I loved the game for some reason, say it a calling or whatever it might be. But I was able to get on campus at Buffalo State, and I knew, right before I had gotten there, they were a traditional power, going to the playoffs almost every year in the 90s, one of the winningest programs in the 90s at the Division III level. And so I knew the tradition was there, and really hoped to add to it,
Now, as a player, what did you know about Division III at that time?
Not too much, honestly, other than, they didn't give scholarships, but I knew that, the football was still pretty good. I grew up on the other side of the state, away from Buffalo, and right in our backyard was Union College, and they were pretty good then as well too, in the 90s and early 2000s. And but when I got on a Buffalo State's campus, I had a rude awakening, basically, like just seeing some of the players walk around on campus, like, oh, this isn't they're not tiny, this isn't to understate what Division III football is. It's really good football. And even at that time, I was impressed. Like, we were 300 across the offensive line. We were over 6'3", like we were big. And
Those are big boys.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad they were on my side, right? But but it was really eye-opening for me about the level of play that we all, not just me, but all the freshmen that walked in had to up their level, for sure.
So you bring two interesting dynamics to Buffalo State at that time. One, you were a quarterback, and for those of you listening, you don't have or watching, you don't have to put the subtitles on. I am going to say the next statement. You were also a long snapper, and those are not two positions that you would normally combine together. So how does the long snapper position come about?
Yeah, no doubt. I used to joke that I threw it better between my legs than over my head. But it was one of those things where, going into my second year there, they had I was fooling around on the sideline, and the year before had graduated, and we were kind of in dire need. But I shot a couple back to my buddy, and he's like, "Hey, you should really try out." And I'm like, "All right," so I gave it a shot. And next thing I know, I'm with the long snap coach, and testing it out there. And I had never ever done it before, but somebody kind of showed me on the fly, and I tried to do what I do with anything I try new, is just go all in on it. And fortunately for me, it turned out to be a 4-year experience, which was pretty fun.
Now, how much were you a free release long snapper, or did they have you in protection? Because I can imagine a coach on the sideline looking at a quarterback and going, "Yeah, maybe please protect your hand." Like, I don't know how. So
yeah.
How was that?
For the most part, 3 out of my 4 years, I was free release. And 1 year we started protection, and then we quickly changed. Not because of anything I could or couldn't do. It was more so they didn't want people hauling off on me, before I could get down the field. So, I was athletic enough to run down there, I guess. I mean, I wasn't that fleet of foot, but I was fast enough where, the other team would have to honor me running down the field. So, from that standpoint, but yeah, they didn't really try to make me scheme up the A gap too much, which was fine.
Coach, why was communications where you so you went from computer science? Were there a couple other degree choices that you were going through there before you got to communications? And then why did you settle with communications?
Yeah, I went through a couple different things, but ultimately, I never really settled hard on anything. But the communications was it. I always thought, even at a young age, I didn't want to get away from sports, and I thought that I'd be, kind of in the broadcast journalism side of things, and thought I'd be on the TV and work my way up to ESPN. And as I started to go through that and test it out and videotape myself on the side of the road a few times, and nobody behind the camera, and people looking at me funny, I started to say, well, this is cool, but I don't know if it's for me, but at the time it was really good. And then as going forward, it's worked out from the recruiting and communication style of being a football coach, for sure.
So you were ahead of the curve on the whole selfie thing. You just set up a tripod and a camera, and you were TikToking and all that before it was even a thing.
That is a great thing that you just said there, and I hope my players never hear it, because I'm not into it right now. But yeah, I guess I was ahead of it. I was recording myself a little differently, but yeah, that's fine.
So in the fall of 2005, you finish your playing career, and then for the spring of 2006, while you're getting ready to graduate, you stay on, you become a coach. What's the biggest challenge, especially for maybe seniors that are in college right now that are about to graduate, want to stay in the game, and want to coach players that they have also played with? What's the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is what you just said is, now I go from a peer to, a boss, so to speak. And that was definitely the hardest part. You're hanging out with guys on a Saturday night, and now all of a sudden you're at that 6 a.m. run, and you're not running with them. You're barking at them. So being able to find that fine line of not being a party guy anymore, and being a mentor, so to speak, just explaining what I had gone through. And fortunately, the guys that I played with and then coached, were really good, because they knew how I had prepared, and they knew, that I knew what I was talking about. And again, I was still trying to find my voice in the coaching world too. I wasn't barking at anybody at that time. I was still trying to figure, test the water.
Who you were going to be.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. You transition from a player, who you are as a player, and then you go into the coaching world, and it's like starting any new job, right? But it's starting a new career, and what's turned into my life. And, so it's been, it was interesting at that time for sure to work with those guys, but, I'm glad that I was able to do it for that semester.
Now, why was there a choice to leave and go to Muhlenberg?
Yeah, I guess the main choice was to kind of spread my wings a little bit, and test things out. And Muhlenberg ended up being on the defensive side of the ball, which, I know some people that are in the coaching profession would immediately dismiss it. But I figured at that time that I had known offense. I needed to learn defense, and what better time than do it than your first job, right? And ironically enough, if I don't coach there those 2 years, I'm not anywhere near the coach that I am today, and probably the person that I am today either. Just working for Mike Donnelly, who was a great leader of men, and I respected a great deal, and his players did as well. And I think so anyway, I had an opportunity to stay at Buffalo State. I had an opportunity to go somewhere else, to be a GA at a wide receiver coach, and then I had an opportunity to go to Muhlenberg. And if it wasn't for the head coach that I had played for basically closing the door and saying, hey, I want you to stay here because it helps us, but I also think from a personal level you need to get out. I think if it wasn't for that conversation, I might not have been there, and I don't, who knows what the world would have held at that point. But
now, coaching on the defensive side of the ball, especially the DBs, that has to be a little bit challenging, being an offensive guy. But then on the other side of that, you were a quarterback, and 90% of that job is kind of knowing what the DB is going to do and when to react to what he does. How did that affect the way you coach your secondary?
Yeah, I mean, in year one, it was kind of just flying by the seat of my pants, and it was exactly what you had said. Like, hey, as a quarterback, I would look at this thing, I would look at that thing, I would look at this. But I knew coverages, but I didn't know techniques. I didn't know how they got there. I didn't know the drills. I didn't know how to tackle the right way. All those things, that you think just kind of go by the wayside as a bystander when you're watching. But Duke really had to teach me how to be a coach. And year one, I was directly underneath him, and I was kind of just setting up drills and making sure the cards were right and getting out on the field as fast as I could. The film was straight, everything like that. And then in year two, he moved down to linebackers and kind of gave me the back four by myself. And that's really when I started to see things at a different level, I guess you could say. I was forced to, there was no more hand holding, so to speak.
Now, what was, after the 2 years there, why the decision to move to Hofstra, other than the fact that, Mama, I made it. You were heading up to what in college is the big leagues.
Yeah, that was, well, the primary reason, I guess you could say, was at Muhlenberg. My time was great. I mean, we won 2 championships. We lost 3 games in 2 years, made the second round of the playoffs. And, so it was a fantastic experience, but I wasn't getting paid a lot. So the natural progression was to then find another job and hopefully move up in the world, and to me, make it to that level, I think was awesome, just to experience kind of more the business side that you don't see at the Division III level. But it was a thing where I was like, yeah, I could coach at that level. I had a lot to learn still, don't get me wrong by any means, but those guys are just like us, they're just a lot bigger. But they're still 18 to 22-year-old kids, and they're learning their way through it. And they just have a little carrot dangled in front of them in regards to the scholarship. So
now I've talked to some other coaches, and we've talked about that specific thing, is the scholarship versus Division III, where there is no scholarship.
Yeah.
And there were a couple coaches in the past that have shared that they feel the difference between Division III and the other divisions is most of the time at Division III, you're not going to have a hostage situation.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas a guy at the Division 1AA or 1AA, 1, and then 2, those guys are on scholarship. Their entire education is being kind of weighed on this side here.
Yep.
Is there any purity to Division III? Is that kind of what Division III is now? Is it the last of the pure part of football, college football? Is that a right way to say that?
That's a great way to say it. I think it is an astute point. I think I think there is, and now I do see the transfer portal kind of leaking into the Division III, where it is kind of pulling away from a little bit. But these guys play because they truly love the game. And at the higher levels, I'm not saying that they don't. They do, but there's more of them that don't than at the Division III level, because at the end of the day, the Division III football player can just say, Coach, I'm going business, and I've had enough, and this has been fun, so thanks. But at that next level, they aren't going to say that, because they're going to finish out and get their degree. And so they might go through the motions, and it might be harder to pull them in that direction of working hard and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I think in as a whole, the Division III level is the purest form you're going to find for the love of the game, the emotion. But all levels want to win. It's just how many of them want to, so.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up the transfer portal before we jump back into finishing out your resume and then talking about Hiram, both last season and coming up this season. It's interesting you bring up the transfer portal. So you're seeing a little bit more activity in the transfer portal now than in past years?
These past 2 years, I've seen more than, from a Division III level for sure. And I think it's the human condition, right? The grass is greener over there, so why don't I try to go over there? And then there's also the guys who say, well, I'm better than this level, I'm going to go try to up my level. Well, what they don't realize is there's 5,000 football players in the transfer portal. And guess what? There's some guys that are trying to move down to continue to play because they do love the game and they might not have enjoyed their experience. So they're all fighting now over these spots. And unfortunately, as you look at the stats, it's just about 40% actually find a new home. So some of these guys sit in that ether of the portal and they have nowhere to go. So, and again, some of them are doing it for the right reasons. Don't get me wrong. But there are some that just say, you know what, I'm not being treated fairly, or I'm not playing enough, or whatever it might be. And they leave. And I think, Coach Primes had something to do with that too, he's made the portal popular, and that's what's come about right now.
Now, jumping back into, so you were at Hofstra in 2009.
Yep.
Then why the decision to leave for Widener in 10?
Great question. I was kind of forced to. So Hofstra actually dropped football after that 2009 season. So as you said, it's like, hey, I made it. I'm at the 1AA level. This is great. Home of Wayne Corbett, home of Marquise Colston. I'm in it. Raheem Morris was the head coach of the Buccaneers. And then we're out on the road recruiting, and I happened to be in the office that day. And next thing I know, the head coach is calling us in and saying that they're shutting down the program. And so the next few weeks was a whirlwind of trying to get our players located elsewhere. And then finally it was find me a job, right? And so what happened was I ended up moving back down to Division III for a position. And in my mind, I had to humble myself a little bit because I thought I was moving up. But honestly, going to Widener was one of the best parts of learning football for me, because now I had my own room, similar to how I had at Muhlenberg. But at Muhlenberg, I wasn't in, I was doing what I was told and just kind of learning still how to be a coach. I learned football at Widener. Every coverage, every defense, every blitz you could think of, staying up late. I wasn't attached at the time, so it was football 24/7, and it was kind of my master's degree in coaching. And I learned a ton in that short time that I was there.
Well, and you bring up your master's, so we'll jump right into that. So after the year at Widener, you end up going over, and as I pointed out earlier, it was pretty good communications department over there at Ithaca. Yep. You decide to get your master's in communication. Why was Ithaca the right fit for you?
Well, at the time, it was a great fit just from a standpoint. It got me closer to my hometown, about 2.5 hours away from there. But it was a full-time position, where at Widener, it was kind of still one of those restricted roles and everything like that. Widener got me the opportunity to be a special teams coordinator, which I loved. But then going to Ithaca was a full-time position, coaching the DBs and being the special teams coordinator, and in turn turned out to be the recruiting coordinator, video coordinator, the whole bit. But and then at the same time, you go from a traditional power at Widener to another traditional power at Ithaca. So I was kind of very fortunate from that standpoint, and luckily I did. And that's kind of where I learned how a program should be run under Mike Welsh. A program that was done properly for decades, not just a couple of years, but for decades. And just seeing how he came to work and approached everything, and I was able to work for him. And then Mark McDonough, our defensive coordinator, who I was directly under, to me is one of the best coaches I've ever been around, and we'll say that till the day I die. But he again, just learning how he saw things on film and how to break them down and things and how to motivate players was awesome. So I really enjoyed my time there. I mean, I spent 6 years there, and
I was going to get to that. You
yeah.
must have enjoyed it. There's 6 years that you spent.
There was 6 years, and I eventually met my wife there, and we ended up getting a house together, and just loved the community that was there, and how ingrained it was with the football program and everything. So I really enjoyed my time. And then at that point too, because I was a young coach, I knew that that was my 4th stop in 5 years. I knew I had to show on my resume that I could settle down too, and everything kind of just aligned for that at Ithaca. And it was really nice to be able to recruit a class and then see them graduate and see the beginning and the end and work through it a couple of years. And to me, that was special, that time that I spent there.
Well, and I'm going to let you introduce the next school when we get to that point, because we've already had some name problems.
Yeah,
so,
I'm making you work tonight.
After the 6 years at Ithaca, 1, why was it time to move on?
Yep.
And 2, where did you move on to?
Yeah. So I went to Salve Regina University in Newport, Rhode Island. And at that time, there was a change. Coach Welsh had retired. There was a change of staff, or head coach, Coach Swanstrom came in, and I was able to be retained. He was great to me in my time there. But I wasn't going to get named defensive coordinator. And I felt like at that point in my career, it was time for me to try to make that jump. And Salve had an opening. I had known, a guy that had used to work there, and, said how much he loved it and everything like that. So I went out there and I interviewed. And if you haven't been to Newport, man, do it. It's unbelievable. You take a 2.5 mile bridge onto an island. And I took my wife with me, for the interview. She could see the town, and she's like hitting me as we go over the bridge. She's like, "Are you kidding me?" I go, "Well, I better get this job," because she's really in on it. And then fortunately, I was able to be there for 3 years and be the defensive coordinator there. And again, it was just a new experience of being able to call the defense. And now it's my turn to make those decisions. I used to bring those ideas up. Now I'm the one that I'm on the line for. So yeah.
Now, so you're there from 17 to 19.
Yep.
And then there's this crazy year right after 19 that I think everybody lived 1 month for 11 months straight. Yep. And then we get to Hiram, which I think kind of coincided, right? The COVID
It happened in January of 2020. So I got there. I had started the workout program with the team. And then next thing I know, it's March and everything's shut down. And yeah, exactly what you said. So congrats, you get to be a head coach. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a worldwide pandemic going on. So, but everybody else went through it too. So, I'm not bitter by any means, but it was just a very interesting start to my head coach tenure. You talk about testing and, only having 10 out of practice, and I'm supposed to teach you the ins and outs and of football, and then the weight room and culture and teamwork and all this sort of stuff, but I can't be with you when I do it. And, the program,
you're going to be over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Stand over there, I'll yell to you.
Exactly. And unfortunately, Hiram hadn't been successful for many, many years before I got here. And I mean, we still on the field have not gotten it done yet, but that's the anticipation that this thing's going to get moving here in a positive way pretty soon. But yeah, so yeah, that's where I was in my new house's basement for about 7 straight months of just Zooming guys and recruiting and everything I could do.
And before I get too far ahead of myself on that one, why was Hiram home? Why was that where you decided this is where I'm going to start the next chapter of my coaching career, and that chapter being the big seat?
Yeah, great question. I think I had always wanted to be a head coach, preferably at the Division III level. Was kind of what I've always, I played it. And then again, I went up to the 1AA, and I had a sour taste because they dropped football and things like that. And come back down to Division III, and I'm like, okay. So Hiram comes open, and I'm like, you know what? I applied here. I applied to a few other places. I heard back from Hiram. I got a phone interview, and then they wanted to bring me on campus. I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. I told my wife, though, I was like, listen, I'm not going out there and taking a job just to take a job to say that I'm a head football coach. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to look around and I'm going to ask as many questions as they ask me, because I'm interviewing them just like they're interviewing me. And went through that process, and I really made sure I wanted to look under the hood and see, like, why has Hiram not had a winning season since the 1980s? Like, really, like, why? And all those boxes kind of got checked off through my interview process of what I was looking for, from a backbone standpoint that I think we can hang our hat on and move forward. And, I call her up that night. I go, I start to tell her, and she goes, "You're going to take that job, aren't you?" I go, "Well, if they offer it to me, I think I will. Yeah, absolutely." And here we are a couple of years later now, and it's talking to you.
Well, so let's talk about your program.
Yeah.
What is the goal? Or we'll start there. What's the goal of the program right now as we sit in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, the goal of the program is to make better men, first and foremost, and because I think that's winning is a byproduct of that, right? I think obviously the goal is, yes, to win without question. I want to do something that hasn't been done here in many years, but I think it comes with players living their purpose, with players, learning how to work with one another, giving the extra effort that's necessary. Life is not going to hand you things. You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to work for it. And I think that's what I want to make sure that these guys leave this program knowing that, hey, what tough stuff's going to come, but I'm okay. I can get through it. So I think all those things, if you put them all together, whether it's in the classroom, on the field, in the community, all those things put together, I think, you see a bigger picture than just yourself, especially the age demographic. And I was guilty of this when I was 18 to 22 years as well, but the age demographic naturally thinks, I can't see 6 inches in front of my face. I'm worried about number one. Right. And the sooner that we can get them to start to understand everything, that they have a purpose in this world. And sometimes it's not for themselves, it's for giving to others. I think that's a really important thing. And I think, again, when you do that and that you're helping one another and working for one another, that the wins will stack up. And it's just a matter of time before that happens. But you just don't. I don't get to walk on campus and go 10-0. Like, that just doesn't happen. I didn't expect that to happen either. But I think some of the kids did, at the time. But there's no magic wand in life. You have to learn to embrace the grind, so to speak, the process, and you'll end up better for it.
Now, if you're talking to an 18 to 22-year-old, or let's say their parents are watching, what are you looking for in your student athlete? You touched on some of it there in that last answer.
I'm looking at character. I mean, anybody can play, right? I mean, not everybody, but I want to know what they're like when the lights aren't on. What are they doing? Are they just the guy that gets on the video game and play all the time, or are they trying to get better at something, whatever it might be? I don't care what you enjoy doing, but do you really enjoy it? I said the first few months that I was on campus, my favorite, and I still believe this, but my favorite person on Hiram's campus right now is Steve the baker. All right. He works in our dining hall. And you want to know why? Because he loves what he does. He works his tail off. And again, I don't care what your passion is, but be passionate about it. Don't just sit back and expect it to happen. So that's kind of the driving home point. Like, hey man, if you enjoy business, go into accounting, whatever it might be. If you prefer to be in a musical, go sing. I don't care. As long as when you lace them up in between the lines, you're just as passionate about football. I'm all good. We'll be okay.
Absolutely. And we're staying in Hiram here. What is the message to the alumni and the fan base about this team?
Yeah, I think it's just about the things that we're doing off the camp, off the field, and around campus, and trying to fill them in. I keep them updated with recruiting things, because that a lot of the alums actually care. They want to know where the guys are from and what they expect, going forward. But they want to know what we're also doing in the classroom and in the community. Like I can tell them that we've raised our GPA. That's exciting. I can tell them that, I haven't yet, but yesterday, for instance, we were at the Hiram Farms down the road, which employs people with special needs. And we had a group of about 10 football players that were helping the fundraiser that was going on. They were catching chickens. Some of these guys are from inner city Cleveland. They've never picked up
seen a
never
chicken.
seen one, right? But they were picking them up and helping. And, so I think, little things like that. We had an assistant coach earlier this year. He donated his bone marrow to hopefully save a 6-year-old's life. Like the things that don't get told at not just our program, but a lot of college football programs. We're so understated because we're modest as football coaches, especially it's like, no, that's what we're supposed to do. I don't need to flaunt this to the world, right? Like this is what we are. This is what football is. This is what team unity does. And that's why it's frustrating when somebody might try to knock football down a peg, but because they don't realize the big picture and scope that this sport has.
Yeah, absolutely. Why Hiram? Like if I'm talking to a potential recruit or a student that's looking at colleges right now, what is it about the college that draws your students in?
Yeah, I think it's a fit, right? I think it's we're in a rural area. Some people want to get away from the bright lights of the city. We're a small campus. We're 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio, so you're getting hands-on touch points from your professors. They want that personal feel. They don't want to be a number in a 300-person lecture hall. We have particular majors that some people are looking for. We have nursing, we have business, we have criminal justice, sport management, education, just to name a few. But I think it's a lot of each person. I think if you asked every member of the team, they might all tell you something different, right? But it's I think the one thing that it goes back to is the personalization that the campus gives you. I think not only from our coaching staff, but from the professors, from the president walks around campus, like things like that you might not even know what the president looks like on other campuses, and I think that's important for our students specifically, because some of them come from not great backgrounds, and to know and trust that they have somebody in their corner, I think is really important.
Now, talk to us about the 2022 season and what the expectations are for the 2023 season.
Yeah, great question. I think, in our first year in 21, we were flying by the seat of our pants. We were just trying to get things going, and we got blown out a lot, unfortunately, and then going into 22, you could see the progress. You could see the kids playing hard. You could see that there was no quit in them. And so we lost a bunch of games by smaller margins, and I think that's how programs go. You lose by a lot, then you lose by a little, then you win by a little, and you start winning big. And I don't know, we're in that mix of losing by a little to winning by a little period right now, and I hope that this coming season we're starting to win by a little. But you could just see that a lot of those scores that happened in year one weren't as large in year two. Obviously we have a lot of returners because that's kind of our freshman class in 21. Now they're sophomores. Next year they'll be juniors. They'll be more weight trained. We were playing with a ton of freshmen that year one against fifth-year COVID seniors. And you're like, oh, okay, this is football, and
that's a 23-year-old grown man there.
Yeah. And no excuses, none, but it was just, as long as I continue to see progress, on the field and obviously, I'm a head football coach. I'm optimist to the nth degree. 10-0, absolutely. Right. But I have to be realistic as well too. So, I need to see progress each and every week. And that means like, if you have a really good game, maybe you win, that the next week you don't just tank because you expect to win. Now, it's changing attitudes, changing mentalities. And now where we're at is we have to believe when it comes to the fourth quarter and maybe we're down a score that we're still going to win the game, and we're going to pull it out in the end. And I think that's the biggest thing that has to change, going forward.
Now, last kind of question on the as a head coach.
Yes.
I've had some other, and I've seen other interviews with different coaches. There's always this talk about it. It takes 4 years. it takes that first 4 years that kind of sets the culture, it sets the standard, and then you kind of build from there. Do you feel that you guys are kind of progressing a little faster because you had a younger team, so they're growing with you as a staff?
Yeah, to an extent. I think they only know the culture that we as a staff have been preaching, so
Okay.
now we're getting to the point where it's now player led, and it's standards. So they say that's not how we do things here, because they don't know what it was like before they were here, just like I don't know what it was like before I was here, and so they've only heard my voice. And, I think from that standpoint, I don't know if we're moving faster or not. I'll tell you in 2 years, right? But I do think that it's becoming more and more enjoyable every single day to come to work and to work with these young men, because they're putting it on the line and they're working their tail off.
Coach, last question before we get into the randoms.
Yeah.
Why Division III? What is and we've touched on so many things that you specifically have touched on, so many things that Division III provides to the student athlete. Is there a summarization, the sentence or two for why Division III is so important?
I don't know. I think for me, Division III allows you to do anything you want with your life. Yeah, I think if you want to play a second sport, play a second sport. You want to double major. You want to have a full-time, well, maybe not a full-time job, but you want to have a part-time job, have a part-time job, and I think you
want to be in the musical, go be in the musical.
Exactly. And I think that's what Division III allows for, where, at a higher level, well, guess what? You're going to be in a meeting. You're going to be you're going to be doing other things that we still do. Don't get me wrong. Right. But we have more finite times than we set for them. But I'm also more open to, like, yeah, you want to play lacrosse, go play lacrosse. Like, that's fine. You were recruited to play 2 sports, go play 2 sports, but at some point I'm going to tell you, like, you got to make sure you're keeping up on both sports responsibilities, and you got to be a good time manager now, but I think the opportunities are, amazing at the Division III level because of all the things that you kind of get involved in.
Absolutely. All right, Coach, this is my favorite part of the show. This is the questions that have nothing to do about football. We're just going to find out about you.
All right.
So if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
That's a great question. No, shoot. I'm going to say Hiram, Ohio, because I am here right now and I love it. My wife will tell me Buffalo because that's where her family is from. So that's why I chuckled there. But, I enjoy where I am right now. I love it here. And yeah.
What's the most important lesson you have learned over your career?
Be yourself. Be yourself. The kids see through the BS, man. Just be who you are and own it. You know what I mean? Just be who you are and own it. And because authenticity is way more important than anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you weren't coaching, and I think we know the answer to this, but for all of you that were listening earlier, if you weren't coaching, what would you be doing and why? Yeah,
it'd probably be the broadcast journalism to stay in sports. The other option that I have thought about would be to be an educator, to be a teacher, because that is what coaching is, right? I think I really enjoy that. I enjoy the meetings just as much as I do the field work, so yeah, it'd probably be a toss up, but I guess I have more experience on the communication side. So,
and we'll get you a cameraman. We'll get you a cameraman so you don't have to stand there by yourself.
No doubt. I'd make more money doing that. So I'm for it.
What is the best compliment you've ever received?
In life or in coaching?
Either.
I was told that I'm a good dad. That was, I kind of poo-pooed it at the time, like we talked self-deprecating, right? But I was like, thank you, like that, because parents know how hard it is to be a parent, and especially as a football coach. So I was happy to hear that.
And then on the other side of the compliments, what is the best insult you've received as a, and maybe we'll keep that too as a coach. What's the best insult that's been hurled at you?
I don't think I can say any of them on a podcast, but
we'll put that little disclaimer at the bottom, TVMA.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, only the bad stuff comes in. The really bad stuff comes in my head. You know, I don't know, man.
We'll pass on that one.
Yeah, probably something about my nose. You know what I mean? Like I just.
The second to last question. Your top 3 football movies.
Top 3 football movies. Okay. The Program is number 3.
Okay.
I know what number 1 is. Hold on. I'm trying to.
It's 2. That's the.
Yeah. Actually, The Program might be number 2. Now that I was sitting here thinking about it, I'm gonna be upset whatever I give number 3 because I just. Oh, computer's dying. Top 3 football movies. It's gonna bug me because I'm gonna say, why did I say that? The only thing that's going through my head right now is the Replacements, and I know that that's not number 3, but it's good. And then Remember the Titans is number 1 by a million. Yeah.
That dang Shane. It's that Shane Falco, man. You just gotta. He cost me a lot of money in that Orange Bowl game.
Yeah, that's right. Keanu, man. Keanu does it.
The last question of the show, I ask every coach. I've asked everybody this season this question. Was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
No, I wasn't expecting. I honestly, was excited to hear about my history, I guess, relive my life, but so I was kind of, interested about that. I guess the long snapping question, definitely you did your homework on that one. That was pretty good. So yeah, I would say I wasn't ready to talk about throwing a ball between my legs. So that you got me there.
Well, so I had to bring it up. Only reason being is I played at Bethany. We have a guy, Zach Lowe. He was long snapper Lowe for 4 years, and if I didn't talk about the long snapper, Perfect. He would have been upset. So, awesome. Coach, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to join us this week, and best of luck to you this season.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For those of you sticking around, we're going to send it to the editorial with Serenity Brown right after this. We'll be right back, Chuckleheads.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the editorial with Serenity Brown. That's Serenity Brown. We just finished Coach Mrozinski. Listen, I have a fucked up last name. Yeah, I have a messed up last name, but that one, it really got me. In the intro, I messed it up. I messed up in the intro. I messed it up twice with him before we finally got to the. So that we could. There's the start of the editorial. Yeah. What else did you like about the episode? Didn't like about the episode?
Good episode. I guess back and forth.
We finally got those audio issues fixed. The lighting seems to finally be coming into form. It was really nice to talk to a guy that's gone the places that he's gone, coached in the positions he's coached as a Division III guy, and then working his way around. I also find it amusing that, like, when he got to Buff State, he talked about how, like, on his visit, how gargantuan the people were. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, we really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever else you get your podcast, make sure you hit the little bell so you don't miss any episodes. And keep up with us on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. The only one that's different is the Instagram page, which is dingo_talk. Yep. I gotta make sure I say that one clear, because that was a debacle too.
Not under talk score.
Yeah. So, since the holiday, hope everybody had a safe and happy 4th. We're going to go with our top 3, because 5 seems to be a number that causes me to have to take an antacid after this segment. So we're going to try 3 and see how that goes. But we're going to go with the 3 things that, like, when you're at the family cookout or the community cookout or whatever, 3 things that you think of when you think of the 4th of July. Would you like me to start?
Yeah. No.
Wow, you're really bringing the energy today.
I'm really tired. It was a long day at work.
All right, so I mean, you got your classic. I'll put this at 3. Your classic dog and burger. It's just kind of it's the go-to for most.
I like burgers. I don't like hot dogs though.
I'm sorry. No, we can't go to Manhattan right now, but after this, when we're in New York, we can try. Anyways, let's see, number 2. I think no matter where I've gone, cookout-wise, it's always been potato salad, which, I'm a big potato salad guy. I enjoy it. Don't enjoy it after 5 hours of sitting on a damn table with the flies and everything else going around. And then, I'm going to go a little different and say the number 1 thing at the cookout minus, obviously the adult beverages, watermelon. And I don't know why. When I think of the 4th of July, that's one of the things you see the video, like the little kid just drenched in watermelon juice and just having a ball with. Yeah, it's just what I think of in the.
I don't like potato salad or watermelon.
Yeah, well, we established last week with your not liking of apple pie that you're a communist. So nobody at home is going to be surprised that you don't like hot dogs, you don't like potato. Listen, potato salad has to be made the right way too. Everybody got their own recipe, and most of them are wrong. You put raisins in your potato salad, you're wrong. I'm sorry. It's the same thing.
Potato salad, I know that's wrong.
I have a friend. His grandfather used to make meatballs with raisins in them. Said they taste like cookies. No, that's not why I'm eating a meatball. So we'll just put that out on the table right there. You don't put raisins in the potato salad. Don't put it in the meatballs either. Go ahead. What's your 3?
Well, number 3, we'll go classic cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Number 2, corn on the cob.
Oh yeah, I missed that one. It was a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
And number 1, barbecue ribs.
Oh yeah. Well, and I guess that just really depends on what kind of cookout you're going to.
Yeah, barbecue ribs though.
And the reason we talked about that is next week, I'm giving you guys are my witnesses, giving you 7 days. We're going to talk about tailgate foods because we should be releasing the first 5.
Isn't that like the same thing as like a...
It's a barbecue.
Yeah.
It's a barbecue.
So my answer is going to be the same.
Yeah, but the reason we're bringing it up is because we're going to give those first 5 games that we're going to try and be in attendance for, and the point is to go to the tailgates. So barbecue, parking lot barbecue. This is tailgate, parking lot barbecue. Also, for those of you that are new to the show, stick with us. So we've gone through the PAC, the OAC. This week we were in the NCAC. We have the MAC, the landmark coming up. I'm missing.
You've done Empire
the Empire 8. There's another, the Liberty League, which is another New York league. Yeah. And not to take anything away from any of the other coaches, really interested to talk to these Division III coaches in New York because you guys don't have Division II schools. It's Division I and Division III.
I'm from New York and I didn't know that.
Well, so there's a couple coaches that we've talked to, and that's the thing that they've talked about is the reason you get the players you get in New York is because, like, for instance, we did the PAC and the OAC. There's a lot of Division I football in Ohio and Pennsylvania. There's a lot of Division II football in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So you look at specifically Pennsylvania, they have the PSAC, which if you're on the cusp of being a Division II or Division III player, but you're getting a partial scholarship, that's where those Division II schools can take advantage of a player, whereas in New York, you're not really going to have that. You're going to get a kid that probably a little bigger, from what I've seen on on film, a little bigger, like some big fucking boys. But so stick around. We got a lot of coaches coming up here in the coming weeks, and I believe next week we're gonna be announcing a couple of those games. We're gonna try to make the early games. But you got anything else?
If you would like to help fund the trips for in the games, we will link the GoFundMe in the description.
Is that everything?
Yep.
Good energy today, kid.
Sorry.
Let's come back next week.
It was a real long day at work.
Let's screw our heads back. Let's screw our heads on tight next week. Come back and be a little tighter.
I apologize.
You don't apologize to me. Apologize to them.
I did.
All right. What are you supposed to remember for next week?
the same thing.
All right.
Same category as this week.
Then we might actually get back-to-back weeks of lists. And with that being said, we'll catch you next week, Chuckleheads.